G'day legends, I hope you're all fantastic. It has been a little while since we've done a Q&A on a Friday, but here we are with yet another installment of Friday Q&A. I have bumped this back this week because I was away from Thursday last week. Flew to Melbourne on Thursday night with the Ragdoll Boys. We played at Glamfest on Friday, which was an awesome show. Not only did we get to play to a load of people, and not only did I get to meet a bunch of you in real life for the first time, thanks to everyone who came up and had a chat and everyone who came out to watch the show, but I got to watch some of my favorite bands ever, including Lynch, Slaughter, Taiketo, Heat. They were amazing. It was one of those days where you kind of pinch yourself, and I put videos up. There was a vlog that I did in the middle of the week, and I also put up the concert footage that was kindly provided to us by our buddy Jose, who pro-shot it. So to everyone who want to watch that, I'm really glad you enjoyed it. It's nice to know that the music that I make resonates with some people out there. We flew back to Perth on Saturday on the very first flight, which in hindsight may have been a mistake. I was pretty tired for the rest of the day, but I did 2 shows with Bernie Dieter's Club Cabaret, which was an amazing experience. I've never done a theater style show before, and all the performers in it, the crew, they were so welcoming and just nice to me, having to sit into this show that I'd never played before. I survived, which I think is the most important thing. Live another day. It was a great learning experience, and I've got some news about that show that I might tell you about next week because it's pretty cool. And then on Sunday, we went to Rottnest Island. Anyone who's familiar with Australia may be familiar with those cute, smiling little animals called quokkas. Quokkas live on Rottnest. It was 42 degrees Celsius. We played a couple of sets outside, and I'm so glad that the breeze came in during the last set. But that was another great one. They really, really looked after us. We had such a nice time there. I always love playing on Rottnest, catching the ferry out, hanging out, going for a snorkel. I saw some amazing sea creatures that I'd never seen before, some carpet sharks and nudibranchs, and did some swim throughs and just had a great day. It was one of those weekends where everything fell into place. So I'm very fortunate there. I'm giving you my life story, but I am here to answer your questions. To everybody who submitted a question on the last Q&A, thank you. I'm going to try and get to it. And if you've got a question for the next Q&A video, let me know in the comments section below. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, links to my Patreon and the music I make with Ragdoll in the video description. Let's get into some questions. Let's get started with some gear questions, particularly some guitar-related questions. I had a few people come up to me at the show on Friday, and then a few people asked the same question in the comments on the video. What is going on with this guitar that I was playing? This is the Rubato Lassie. I've got a few videos with this one up on the channel once everything focuses on here. They were kind enough to send me out one of the first prototypes that they made of this guitar when it had a maple fretboard and some mini humbuckers. I sent it back not too long ago, and they upgraded it. They even put, look at that, on the back, my logo there, which is pretty humbling, I have to say, because this is just an amazing instrument. It's so easy to play. It holds tune unbelievably well. Like, I can't believe that you can basically tune this guitar once and play it for a whole day, which was very, very handy in the heat. I can also fly with it in a soft bag, and it's carbon fiber. It's not going to move. It's basically going to withstand a lot more than your typical wood guitar can handle, especially, specific types of slanted headstock guitars that we all know about. But yeah, that's the Rubato Lassie. Go and check out my videos that I've done with it. I really like this guitar, and I kind of feel like I'm getting into that stage where I've gigged it enough now where I'm really starting to bond with it, and I'm used to playing it because it is so light. It's just kind of like playing a fretboard. But yeah, changed the strings on it, probably tuned it 5 or 6 times over the entire weekend, and it's mint. I was also asked about the wireless system that I've been using for shows. I've got one of the NUX B.O.C wireless units that I really like. It kind of does the similar thing that the B.O.C wireless units and the Line 6 relays do, where you can charge the transmitter on the receiver. It's also got a tuner on it, multiple ins and outs, just a really good little utility device. And you can even upload a custom GIF on there. So I've got a little picture of my cat when I fire this thing up. Again, they do good stuff. NUX are kind of, to me anyway, like this generation's B.O.C, where everything they make is really solid, and it is priced really, really well. I've done lots of demos with their gear on here, and that wireless system has been serving me really, really well. I'm going to be using it for the foreseeable future. Now, playing Glamfest, Lynch Mob were one of the headliners. I did get a chance to take a sneak peek at George's rig and hear it during soundcheck. A big thank you to my buddy Marcelo, who took some photos of George's rig up close, and to my buddy Jaron, who now plays bass with George. We toured in 2014 and 2015 with Jaron's old band Mach 22, and you just meet some people and they're just sweethearts, like not a bad bone in their body. You always remember them. I've always remembered getting to hang out with Jaron. He's sort of one of the few people I ever meet who is taller than me. Great bass player, excellent singer, fantastic all-around dude. He was amazing with George. In fact, the whole band was pretty amazing as well. But during soundcheck, basically George had a Plexi and a Fryette power station, and then a pedal board with a few pedals on it, and a B.O.C DD500 in the loop. And there was kind of a lot of stuffing around at soundcheck and a lot of hands being thrown up in the air. I was told that basically George just kind of ditched everything, plugged straight into the amp, and used the DD500 in the loop of the power station. I believe he was also using a Variac on there as well. It sounded incredible. It sounded like George Lynch playing the guitar, and it's probably the closest thing I've ever had to a religious experience. George was on fire, the band sounded so good, and the song selection was absolutely mint. Jerome was telling me that he's been writing the set list, and did I have any requests, and they basically played everything that I wanted to hear. So I'll put up some little pictures on here from my video if you kind of want to know about George's rig. George sounds great because he's George. Do I have any double ups of particular pieces of gear? I do. For different reasons, I have double ups of certain pieces of gear that I basically couldn't live without. So my fractal rigs, I've got backups for, because while I've never had an issue with them and they've never gone down with me at a show, I just don't want to ever deal with that situation. So, I've got a double of my main live rig that I can use. I also have triples of my B.O.C SD1. I've got an old just stock yellow SD1. I've got one of the black 40th anniversary ones, and I now have one of the gold 50th anniversary ones. I've got a few different 88 MP1s, and while they're not double ups, I have a lot of overlap between the guitars that I mostly play on stage, my PRS stuff, and now the Rubato. They cover a lot of similar ground in terms of the core tones, the playability, and on this it has the freeway switch, so I can get those split and in-between sounds, and similarly on something like the PRS DGT or my custom 24s, I can split the pickups. So I like having that functionality, whether it's exactly the same piece of gear or whether it's a slightly different piece of gear that covers the same ground. This is a really good question, following on from a John Cordy video talking about the most amount of music you can make with the least amount of gear. What's the minimum amount of gear I would need to, say, just sit around and make some music for 12 hours? I would probably need some kind of computer. I'm a Mac guy, so let's go for the Mac Studio. That's super powerful. Realistically, if I had a set of studio monitors, I've got Atom A7s in here that I love, they'd be pretty good. I'd obviously need a monitor for the Mac, but maybe I could do it on a laptop and, some kind of way to get into the computer, and then I'm good, whether it is an audio interface or whether it's just my Axe effects and then, a few choice plugins from FabFilter and Isotope. I'm pretty sure I could just sit around and make a bunch of guitar noises and be reasonably happy with it. So let's say, to be completely happy, I'm going to take my Axe effects, my computer, a set of studio monitors, and maybe FabFilter Pro Q3, Ozone from Isotope, because that's kind of magic and does just about everything. I'm fairly certain I could go out and just make some music. And in fact, a lot of the time that's all I use when I'm making music, especially here on the channel. If I'm soloing over a backing track, I'll just plug the Axe in, fire it up, use Ozone to master it, and happy days. It did make me think that one of the most productive periods in my life when it came to writing music, not necessarily good music, but really getting into the swing of it, was when I was 16 and my parents bought me a B.O.C BR1600 CD. I had that, a guitar, and a set of headphones, and I wrote so many little tunes with that thing, and I've still got the demos kicking around. Maybe they'll see the light of day one day, but that's also kind of terrifying to think about. Am I a Blue Oyster Cult fan? You better believe it. They are one of my favorite bands. I always like to say to the guys that, if you think of the 70s bands that everybody loves, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Rainbow, UFO, Black Sabbath. And you got Blue Oyster Cult, and they could kind of do all of those things and their own thing. And that's definitely an inspiration for what we do in Ragdoll, where we've got a lot of different influences, and we can be the lightest band on a heavy lineup or the heaviest band on a light lineup, but we're always at that extreme in there. I think B.O.C were one of those bands. So yeah, I pretty much like everything they've put out, and Buck Dharma is certainly one of the most underrated guitar players of all time. If I had to name my favorite B.O.C song, it might be Shooting Shark. This one comes from Corey Parsons. Do I find cartoons from the 70s to be particularly interesting or intriguing based on the way they are made? I think like a lot of things from the 70s, they were kind of still in that working stuff out phase, and I definitely watched a load of Scooby-Doo and Looney Tunes and Disney growing up as a kid, so I have a lot of nostalgia about that particular era, even though I grew up in the early 90s, and early 90s cartoons really kind of make me fog up behind my glasses as well. The 90s X-Men stuff. I saw there's a new X-Men trailer that came out that looks really good as well. A whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, I can certainly see the appeal there. It's sort of like they were really pushing up against the limits of the available fidelity and being really creative within those bounds. My vocal chain for these videos is pretty straightforward. It is a Shure SM7B going into my Universal Audio Apollo interface. I'm using the UA Neve preamp as a unison plugin. It goes into the UA Distressor plugin, and then I have Isotope RX10 voice denoise on there, which is absolutely magic. I'll then run that into FabFilter Pro MB just as a de-esser to take some sibilance out. Other than that, super straightforward, good preamp, good compressor, bit of noise reduction. Happy days. That is it for this week's Friday Q&A. If you've got questions for the next Q&A video, pop them in the comments section below. I hope you have a fantastic weekend filled with glorious guitar noises, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.